Hello everyone, this is Grace here. So let us get into your IFRS International Financial Reporting Standards Chapter 1. The topic covered in this video will be List of IFRS, a brief theoretical study of International Financial Reporting Standards. So this is a topic which is going to be covered here. So in this topic, we will look into what are the different standards and what is the brief explanation of it will be given. So your introduction part is already done in the previous videos. So we'll directly get into your IFRS standards. So here is your list of international financial reporting standards. So there are almost 17 IFRS standards. So in that, the first one is IFRS 1, first time adoption of international financial reporting standards. IFRS 2, share-based payment. IFRS 3, business combinations. IFRS 4, insurance contracts. IFRS 5, non-current assets held for sale and discontinued operation. IFRS 6, exploration for and evaluation of mineral resources. IFRS 7, financial instruments disclosures. So now I will be explaining you till IFRS 1 to IFRS 7 standards. So let us get into the standards. So IFRS 1, first time adoption of international reporting standards. So I think in the last video the video explains about what is IFRS and how is it been originated, what are the benefits of it and other features of it. So now these standards are laid. Okay, let me give an introduction of it. IFRS was laid is a kind of accounting principles where you need to follow it to bring out your accounting procedures in a form. Where each country has its own standards to be maintained. For example, India has IAS, which is Indian Accounting Standards. So every country has its own framework of accounting, how it need to be followed and how the accounting procedures to be carried out. So like that, some countries did not like some countries which were very small countries were very behind in framing their standards. So what happened? America was using GAAP to frame their accounting policies. GAAP is nothing but generally accepted accounting principles. So America was, or US was using these standards for maintaining their accounts and the policies. It was a kind of policies to be used to maintain their accounts. So what happened? GAAP was full of rules-based system, so it had a lot of lists to be followed, whereas IFRS is a global usage standard where everyone can use it. So every country can use it. It is a one fixed standard, which is principles which can be followed by everyone in the world. So it made simple for the people all over the world, for the people who are trading all over the world. For example, India's accounting standards is IAS. It can be used in India, but when it moves to the other countries, according to their country's financial statements, their requirements will vary. Okay, for example, there is a branch in other abroad countries. India's branch is in abroad countries. When it is like that, the main branches in India, the accounting standards will be according to IAS, which is Indian Accounting Standards, whereas it is in abroad, the accounting standards should be followed according to that country. So it is little tough where to maintain your IAS and to maintain their other standards based on based on those so and so country. So what happened at last? IFRS is a international financial reporting standards. So if you follow IFRS, it is enough. Wherever you go, IFRS is a principle where it is a fixed standard for irrespective of whichever country it is. So it made the work simpler for the business world to maintain their accounting procedures in a unique form without any confusion. So if there are two accounting standards, like India, your main branch maintains IAS, and when your abroad branch maintains the standards according to that country, it is difficult for comparison. One disadvantage is difficult for comparison. It is difficult to understand. It is difficult totally to go through the different standards. So it is better to use one particular standard, which is IFRS. So I think you all understood what is IFRS. So which is a global accounting standard to be followed. So it is not a very big standard. The rest it is limited standards which will be following up one by one as it is being framed one by one in a continuous flow. So among that, IFRS 1 is first time adoption of international financial reporting standard. IFRS 1, first time adoption of international financial reporting standards. So under this standard, what it explains is, for any first users who are adopting IFRS, first time adoption of international financial reporting standards, this sets out the procedure that an entity must follow when it adopts IFRS for the first time as a basis for preparing its general purpose financial statements. So what it means is, IFRS 1 was developed, was reconstructed, the new version of it was reconstructed in November 2008. It means IFRS was already established in June 2003. It was drafted, that is, IFRS adoption of IFRS was issued in June 2003. The restructured version was established in November 2008. So the changed version was, that is reconstructed, that is the additional version for IFRS 1 was reconstructed and issued in November 2008. So what this standard explains here is, any firm which is adopting IFRS standards for the first time should follow the rules or principles which is laid down under IFRS 1 section. So what does it tell is here, any firm or entity which adopts for the first time as a basis for its preparing general financial statement should adopt IFRS 1's procedures. So this IFRS, it grants limited exemptions from general requirements. So what does it explains is, when you're adopting for the first time, it grants certain exemption. That is, when you're getting into new methods of adopting accounting, it is difficult for you to totally comply with the new version. So it gives you certain exemption where you can adjust for the first time when you're preparing the financial statement based on IFRS standards. Certain exemptions is given to you when you're preparing for the first time. So those exemptions will be listed in your IFRS standards. Then what it tries to tell is, under this IFRS standards, any entity which prepares the financial statement for the first time, if in the preceding year it's prepared IFRS financial statement for internal management use, as long as those IFRS financial statements were not made available to the owners. So which entity can use IFRS first time adoption of international financial reporting standards procedure is, where if they have not already used it, they are the new users of IFRS standards. They are using it for the first time. That is why it is stated here as first time adoption of international financial reporting standards. Whoever is using it for the first time will follow the procedures laid under IFRS. So how is it being identified is, any firm which has not used the standard till now or in the preceding year, or the financial statement or the standard which has already adopted IFRS, and if it is adopted IFRS and you have given it to your owners, that is your users, that is your customers, then it will not be called as, you can't use first time adoption of international financial reporting standards unless and until you have used the standard just for your internal that is your internal management use. So anyone using it for the first time, only they can follow this IFRS standards. So it doesn't matter if you have used this standard for your internal management, just for verifying before you use it or before you submit your financial statement to your customers and your other users of your accounting information. So if you are using only for the first time, then this standard will be applicable. That is what I was trying to tell here is, an entity may be first time adopter if in the preceding year it prepared IFRS financial statements for internal management use only, as long as those financial statements were not made available to owners or external parties. External parties or owners, nothing but your investors and creditors. If a set of IFRS financial statements was for any reason made available to owners or external parties in the preceding year, then the entity will already be considered to be on IFRS, and IFRS 1 does not apply. So you clearly understood now. That means IFRS 1 is only for the first time users. If you have already given IFRS financial statement to your external users, that is your investors or creditors, then this IFRS 1 standard does not apply for your business. So here an entity can use IFRS standards for the first time if this preceding year is not been used. That is, in the preceding year these standards are IFRS accounting policies are not used. So here then it discusses the exemption to the retrospective application of other IFRS. For example, estimates, derecognition of financial assets and financial liabilities, hedge accounting and non-controlling interest and classification and measurement of financial assets, and exemptions from other IFRS. Certain provisions for business combination, share-based payment transaction, insurance contracts, deemed cost, lease accounting, and many more. So what this statement explains here is, it gives certain exemption. So what in the first line I explained you all that when you're using IFRS for the first time, it gives you certain exemption to adjust that standard into your policies or in your accounting procedure when you're using it first time. So it doesn't encourage, or it doesn't encourage retrospective application of other IFRSs. For example, your derecognition of financial assets, your non-controlling interest, and classification or measurement of financial assets. So all these will not be considered when you're preparing your financial statements. That is your past retrospective application, in the sense your past data or details, your past information which you will be using it now to add on to your net income for the financial statement. Any such past data or derecognition of financial asset and financial liabilities, so all that will not be encouraged in your IFRS 1. So that is what I'm trying to tell. Then it discusses the exceptions to the retrospective application of other IFRSs. So how your other past information, that is your profit carried forward for the previous year to this year, or any depreciated assets value to be carried forward, or any loss to be adjusted from the previous year to this year, anything such, the past information will have certain exceptions to be followed when you are using IFRS 1 for the first time. So this standard explains you all how are you going to treat, what are your exemptions to be, or what are your procedures to be followed when you are using your IFRS 1. So what are the necessary comparative information is prescribed? At least, so when you're preparing this financial statement using IFRS standards, The necessary comparative information is at least 3 statements of financial position is required. So you need to maintain 3 statements of financial statement, 2 statements of comprehensive income, that is income and expenditure statement, 2 separate income statements if presented, 2 statements of cash flow, 2 statements of changes in equity, related notes including comparative information. IFRS 1 then orders that an entity must explain how transitions of IFRS affected its reported financial statements and prepare reconciliation of equity and total comprehensive income. Yes, when you prepare your financial statement, you prepare your income and expenditure statement as well as your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, your comparison of your gross assets and your net asset. You prepare your fixed asset statements. Then later you also prepare your cash flow statement, your depreciation statement, then your equity shareholder statement. So these are all the other statements what you prepare, what you attach with your financial statement. Your financial statement not only includes profit and loss account and balance sheet, it includes all these equity details, cash flow state details, then your comparative analysis of the previous years and the present year's comparison. So all this should be maintained. So that is what they are telling here. At least 3 statements of financial position, that is your balance sheet, and 2 comprehensive income statement, that is where you compare the previous year and present year statement. Then your income, your profit and income statement is nothing but your profit and loss account, two sets to be maintained, and your cash flow of 2 sets to be maintained. Then equity share details 2 sets to be maintained. Along with that, related notes including comparative information is every financial statement when it is prepared, it is necessary for it to maintain a notes. So what is this notes? It gives an explanation of related notes includes comparative information. So when you prepare a financial statement, a notes also should to be prepared. Notes includes, it is nothing but it includes information which you have not explained in your financial statement. Your financial statement contains only figures in it. So how these figures have been adjusted? Have you made any adjustment from the previous years to the current years? So or any additional been added on, any changes been added to your financial statement will be explained theoretically in your notes column, which will clearly explain what are the adjustment you have made in your balance sheet and your financial statement point by point with using the schedule number. Schedule number, I think you all know what is schedule number. When you prepare your balance sheet, working notes are called as your schedule numbers here. So IFRS then orders that an entity must explain how transitions to IFRS affected its reported financial statement and prepare reconciliation of equity and total comprehensive income. Yes. So how your financial statement has affected, your preparation of financial statement is affected with your previous standards. The comparison or comparison data to be prepared, and you need to explain how this transition worked out and prepare a reconciliation of equity and total comprehensive income statement. So the reconciliation of equity, how your equity has changed and your income statement has changed by adopting IFRS 1 standards. So your next standard we get into is your IFRS 2, which is share-based payments. The word share-based payments itself will explain you what is it. So the payments, whatever you do to your owners or credit business dealers, will be through share-based payments, or what are the either ways of payments. Here, IFRS 2 sets out the rules for reporting the share-based payment transaction in entities' profit or loss and financial position, including transactions in which share options are granted to employees. So what IFRS 2 sets out the rules for reporting the share-based transactions in entities' profit and loss and financial position is, every employees or every shareholders in your organizations, so you need to pay a certain remuneration to the employees who work in your organization. Not only employees, the creditors, the investors, you need to pay certain income which is generated from your business, the income generated to be distributed to your outsiders or internal management, to your internal management as well as to the external management. You need to distribute your profit among them, because they are the pillar for your development of your business. So when you're distributing them, it can either be through share-based payments or you can issue it through cash-based payments. So when you're issuing to share in the form of share, how are you going to distribute it, and how are you going to account those transactions in your equity statement? As I explained in your first time adoption of IFRS standards, which tells you to maintain two statements of changes in equity. So when you make an equity, if you're doing any share-based payments, it's nothing but equity shares and other shares. How is it going to affect your equity statement is what this standard explains you all. IFRS 2 share-based payments. So that is what it clearly tells here. IFRS 2 sets out the rules for reporting the share-based payment transactions in entities' profit or loss and financial position, including transactions in which share options are granted to employees. It is not only for issue to the creditors or to the investors of the organization, even to the employees. So the IFRS 2 deals with three types of share-based payment transaction. First type of equity settled share-based transactions, where an entity receives goods or services in exchange for equity instruments. For example, providing share options to employees as part of their remuneration package. So here they deal with three types of share-based payments transaction. First one, what it tells is here the organization does share-based payments where they may acquire goods or services. So here employees work in the organization, they render service to the organization. In return for that, what organization decides, they can either give them remuneration or they can give the employees their shares, where they become the shareholders of the company. So these shares will grant them income in the future. So their remuneration in form of share will also get them income. The second type of share-based settlement is through cash. The second type is cash settle and share-based payment transaction, in which the entity receives or acquires goods or services in exchange for liabilities to these suppliers. So first point was dealing with totally with equity shares, where it is nothing but share-based payment is where you make an agreement between the supplier and the entity pays in the form of equity shares to the supplier for the goods or services which has been received, or the goods which has been received, and based on that the shares will be granted. When the second type states here cash settlement based, where the cash is being settled in the settlement is made in the form of cash to the supplier based on the value or price of the entity's share price or other equity instruments. Liability are in amounts based on the price. That is, when you buy goods or services, you are liable to that person. So how is it being settled? If it is settled in the form of cash, that cash is measured or valued based on the price of the share in the entity. What is the price value of the shares in the entity? Based on that they decide. So the share-based payments IFRS 2 it guides you how to calculate the face value of the shares to be settled to the supplier. So here, for example, a company grants share appreciation right to their employees, whereby employees will be entitled to future cash payment based on the increase of company share price over some specified period of time. Yes, so employees are usually given share-based payments in order to encourage them. It kinds of an incentive provided to them to encourage their working activities. So when the employees are given share-based payments, it is like giving them equity shares of the company. They are also given cash settlement. So how they give the cash settlement is in the usually employee work for 3 years or 5 years. At the end of his a service, he will be given this share settlement. So it is a future based settlement. Equity share based settlement is future settlement. If he is given as cash incentive, this cash is based on the share value. So when he is retiring, along with the share value, cash will also settle based on the share value on that day, that is on his retirement period. So if he is an employee, you will get cash. If cash incentive is provided for his service rendered, that amount will be accumulated for and given in the future when he is in the position to leave the organization. So along with this equity shares, this cash incentives based on the price value of the share on that day will be decided and given to him. So recognition, how is these type share based and cash based is recognized is when it is recognized when you receive the goods and services from the customer, or when any service is rendered by the supplier to the entity. When the entity receives the services or goods, that is a time when it has been recognized. That is a time where you need to make the settlement. So here cash settlement is based on how it has been recognized is cash is in the form of cash or other assets in the organization, but in equity settlement is it is fully based on equity shares. So the recognition of cash will be done immediately, as it is based on settlement, immediate settlements. When recognition of equity will be done based on the future settlement is equity shares. So what is your third point is, the third type is share-based payment transaction with cash alternatives, where entity receives or acquires goods or services in exchange for either cash settlement or equity instrument. Yes. So the third option tells share-based payment transaction with cash alternatives. Yes. This provides two types of settlement. Might be two types of settlement where it is both based on cash settlement as well as share settlement. So these are the three types. One is equity settlement, and one is cash settlement, and one is both share based as well as with cash alternatives. So this is your share based payments. So next is, so after this, separation entity is dictated. So why is this share based payment is being stated in IFRS 2 is for the business entity which is engaged in distribution of their money to their liability towards the service or goods which they have received. Their liability, how are they paying? Is it in the form of share based? If it is in share based payment, then how are you going to account your equity shares and the changes in the transaction in your share value and your share transactions? So how are you going to do the change? How is the face value decided? How is the value decided for the settlement process? This standard helps you to follow the rules, the steps, the methods to be followed if your settlement is based on share value. Next is your IFRS 3 business combination. So IFRS 3 provides rules for recognition and measurement of business combinations when an acquirer acquires assets and liabilities of another company, and those constitutes a business, parent, subsidiary company situation. So when is IFRS 3 is being implemented is when it is a business combination. Business combination is where a parent company is acquiring, where one company is acquiring the other company. So the acquiring company will be called as parent company. The company which is acquired is called as subsidiary company. So when you are acquiring a company and you become a parent and subsidiary company, then you need to adopt IFRS 3, which is your business combination. So it also gives a note that IFRS 3 does not set out the rules for the preparation of consolidated financial statement for business combination, such as group of companies under the control of parent, etc. This is the scope of IFRS 10. IFRS 10 explains you how to prepare a consolidated financial statement, but IFRS 3 states how are you going to recognize and measure the business combination when an acquirer acquires assets and liabilities of another company. This is the starting stage. When a parent is acquiring, when one company is acquiring the other company, what are the procedures? How are you going to recognize, how are you going to measure the assets and liabilities of that particular subsidiary company is what business combination explains. So IFRS 10 is how are you going to prepare the financial statement. IFRS 3 is how are you going to measure the subsidiary company's assets and liabilities for acquiring it. IFRS 3 clarifies how to identify business combination and prescribes how to apply the acquisition method in accounting for it. Yes, how are you going to start with business combination and how are you going to apply for the acquisition method. So applying the acquisition method comprises of 4 steps: identifying the acquirer, determining the acquisition date, recognizing and measuring the identifiable asset acquired, the liability assumed, and any non-controlling interest in the acquiree, recognizing and measuring goodwill or a gain for a bargain purchase from a bargain purchase. So these are the 4 steps. First, you will identify who is your acquirer. Then you will determine which is your acquisition date, when are you acquiring it. Next, you recognize what are the steps you need to follow is these 4 steps. Acquiring, who's your acquirer, you need to know who's the true owner of that particular company, so a clear checks to be maintained. Then when are you going to acquire, the acquisition date. Then your recognition and measuring of the assets and what are your liabilities and what are your non-controlling interests should be decided. So here, what do you mean by non-controlling interest is when a parent company may not purchase all the shares of its subsidiary. When some of the shares of the subsidiary company are held by outsiders, their interest in the subsidiary company is known as non-controlling interest. So here, the non-controlling interest must be calculated. This calculation, or it must be calculated in a different method. So this you will be learning in your upcoming chapters. So I hope you understood what is not controlling interest. So it is mainly non-controlling interest is stated when a parent company acquires a subsidiary company. So in subsidiary company, everybody will not be every shares will not be held by the management itself. There will be an outsiders also. Their interest in the subsidiary company is known as non-controlling interest. So you need to recognize, measure, identify what are the assets, liabilities, and what are the non-controlling interest in the acquiree. Acquiree is nothing but your subsidiary company. Next, fourth, recognizing and measuring goodwill or a gain from a bargain purchase. So you will calculate and find out, is it a goodwill for you? Are you getting a profit out of your purchase consideration? So these are the 4 items you need to keep in mind, and this is what business combination helps you out, or it guides you out how you need to maintain all this and how it should be when you are acquiring a subsidiary. What are the steps to be followed? This IFRS standards will explain you. So it is not this IFRS standards for your syllabus. You need to understand what is its recognition criteria and what is it, only the brief explanation of it, not in depth. So IFRS 3 sets out details for all these steps. IFRS 3 gives all additional guidance for applying the acquisition method to particular types of business combinations, such as achieved in stages or achieved without the transfer of consideration. So you will be learning what is the acquisition process, how is it going to be carried out. All the process will be set out in IFRS 3 standard.